Welcome, welcome, welcome to this edition of Sagionic 1027. We are so glad that you decided to join us today. And what is this Sagionic thing, anyways? Right? So let's break down the word for a second. So the word Sagionic means movement by movement in time. So let's think of any movement that occurred throughout human history. And was it a one time situation that changed history as we know it? Or was it movement by movement? Right? So now let's think of the word Sagion. The word, and by the way, both of these words are Greek, and I'm blood Greek. So it makes it fun words, right? So the word Sagion means carriers of wisdom. So our goal here at Sagionic 1027 is how do we take those who have functioned under what I would call a business mindset? Doesn't necessarily mean you own a business, but a business mindset is representing professionally, having a spirit of excellency in your work, not being flimsy flopsicle, but really taking everything that's before you and doing it with your whole heart. Caring for people, loving on people, right? Not being sister who I'm calling in sick every week, right? So to me, that's having a business mind that is work ethic. I even think of like my husband, amazing man, been in the company slash industry for 31 years, right? That doesn't happen when you're like, don't care, right? My husband's like a diehard when it comes to just, always showing up, always being there, just, thanking the Lord every day. Lord, thank you for the opportunity to work, right? Who says that? That's my husband, right? And so today our guest is a woman. The very first time I met her, I'm like, Lord, I like her. I could put her in my pocket and take her with me. And it has been so beautiful to watch this woman over the last couple of years that I've had an opportunity to see her in what I call the field. But what she's going to share with us today on how she partnered with the creative realm to bring forth something is why I'm excited to share her with the world. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Becca Robinson, an established author. So Becca, today is all about you. What would you like our audience to know?
To listen and say yes to the Lord. To listen and say yes. If nothing else you take away is always give him your yes. It's so much better than what you expect. So that would be my big thing, is just give the Lord your yes.
And so tell us a little bit about, okay, so you're an author, you're an established author now, right? So go back a little. Was this the first project you ever did in your life? Or perhaps as you were going through the years, you thought about potentially jotting down some thoughts?
So when I was a little girl, I always had this dream of writing children's books. This is something from a very small age. I'm going to say probably 3-4 years old. I always had just thought of writing children's books. My younger sister, actually, about 15 years ago, she brought it up and she was like, "What happened to you ever writing children's books?" I said, "Yeah, one day, one day, the corporate world is called. One day."
Love, you gotta be
So,
quieter. 1 second. Love, you gotta be quieter. Go ahead.
it's okay.
I've had dogs like pop in the scene of the guest, and there was a dog howling. There was a dog scratching on the door. Then there's kids that pop in the scene.
Yep,
You gotta love
yep.
it. Yeah.
We all have lives, right?
Yeah.
So about 15 years ago, my sister had reminded me of this dream, and I was like, I'll get to it eventually. In 2017, I had gone to what I call my reawakening with the Father. Like, I actually met Jesus. I'd grown up in church. I had an biblical understanding of what that was. But as far as an encounter, I had not experienced that. So in 2017, I was going through some things, and it broke me open, is what I like to say. It broke me open to the Lord. It broke me open to understanding how he loves us. So through this, I started writing a book, what was I thought was going to be a workbook. And I still believe it will be a workbook. I got about 3/4 of the way done. And the Lord said, okay, now it's time to turn it into children's books. And I was like, what? I did not see this coming. What is going on here? So I said, okay. I said, yes, right? You're back to that. Yes. Okay, Lord, yes. I said, Lord, if this is really you, we're getting ready to go away on a beach trip this weekend. And it's an all women are going. There was like 5 or 6 of us women. If this is really you, you are going to get an opportunity where you and I are going to be alone and we're going to write this book, Lord. This is what if this is you, this is what I need to know that you're calling me into this space. So we go to the beach, we get there. We had beautiful worship. One of the ladies sang and played guitar. So we had it was just beautiful. And we all fell out under the Spirit, praying and worshiping, in our spot. And as I came to, I kept hearing the Lord, now is your time. Now is your time. And so I was, kind of looking around, and everyone was leaving. They all were going to do something else. And so I was going to have this whole house by myself with the Lord. Okay. And so I said, okay, Lord, now's the time. So they all left. I grabbed my journal and I said, okay, Lord, I just sat there in this chair. I closed my eyes and I just wrote whatever the Lord told me to write. 10 minutes, we wrote iSoldier Blue. That was the very first book. Was in 10 minutes, iSoldier Blue.
I love it! I love it! I love it!
And the Lord speaks to me in acronyms, right? Okay. So that's how I remember things. Okay. So blue is being little under everything.
Oh.
And I was just like, okay, Lord, we can do this. So we went through, we wrote iSoldier Blue. This is all about the armor. So when I was in 2017, when I was going through this breaking open, is what I call it, breaking open, I realized that I needed the armor. And this was something that had been taught to me from a small age, put your armor on, put your armor on.
Okay.
I never had realized that there's a place of internal application that needs to happen when it comes to the armor. So often we think of the armor as an external place of protection.
Whoa, hold on. You got people that are like, what is she talking about? So you're going to have to break that down right there because they have what foreign language is she talking about right now? So you're going to have to push pause. Now go back and say, what are you talking about?
So that application, what happens is so many times we'll put the armor on externally.
No. People don't know what the armor is. So you've got to break it down. I need to know what the armor is.
Yeah, I'm gonna break. So once I get through this section,
got you. Okay.
It all in.
Okay.
Yep.
Got you. Okay. Thank you.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you get to edit. This is beautiful, right? I love this. Okay.
No, we don't edit. No editing.
No. Oh,
we
so
don't
you guys
edit.
get to see all of it.
Yes, all of it. We do not edit. This is called keeping it real. One reel. That's it.
Perfect. Okay. So the armor.
Okay.
The armor. So when we speak of the armor, what is the armor? Let's cover that. Okay. The armor is in the spiritual realm. It talks about this in Ephesians, right? It talks about to arm yourselves. What it is to arm yourselves. So usually a lot when we talk about this, we have the helmet of salvation. Okay. We have our breastplate, our belt of truth, a shield, sword, and boots. And lots of times this is where people will stop at the armor. But if you continue to read, you have to get into a place of prayer around the armor. So that's where from a little girl, I had heard about the armor. Put your armor on. But I'd never had the application of pushing the prayer in with that armor. So I started to ask the Lord, what does this armor do? why are we to arm ourselves? I can
Okay.
understand externally because we're in the world, but why are you showing me an internal place of what this armor is?
Okay.
And so he took each piece of the armor and he started to explain it to me in a way that I had not understood before.
Okay.
So he asked me the first piece. What is the first piece? It's the helmet of salvation. What does salvation mean? Free from harm. He says, so Becca, when you put your helmet of salvation on, what are you doing? I said, I'm choosing to keep my mind free from harm. Bam. Okay, you got that. That's the internal application of what that is. Every time I say I'm putting my helmet of salvation on, yes, I'm putting my helmet of salvation on for a place of protection, but it's protecting my mind to know that my mind can be in a place that's free from harm. I was like, okay, I get that. Beautiful,
Okay, that's
Lord.
good.
I understand
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so what about this breastplate, right? And so this is where he started to show me that my helmet, if my helmet was crooked at all, my breastplate would try to kick out that thought process. So there's a lot of times like, well, we'll hear people say, oh, I've got anxiety or I've got this going on. I no longer will couple myself to anxiety. I will say, oh, my breastplate's trying to kick something back up to me. I've got a thought process that's not quite 100%. It's not quite all the way there in that place of free from harm. So my breastplate is trying to kick it back up to my helmet. So I know that there's an issue there, right? I was like, okay, Lord, I can get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
So then I was like, what's next? Okay, the belt of truth. And this is where the Lord really started to speak to me and offer me healing around even my stomach. I suffered on and off for years with stomach issues. And what the Lord through the years has started to show me is my armor is directly connected to my stomach issues. So when I'm having a lot of gut issues in the physical, or I'm not feeling well, or that tenseness in my belly, it's because I've either got my helmet or my breastplate, I'm not listening to it. And so now it's got to my gut, that belt of truth, and it does not want me to believe a lie. So my stomach is trying to push it back up to the helmet so we know how to process things. I was like, this is amazing, Lord, right? Like, okay. So then we went to the shield.
Okay.
With the shield, what he showed me is that so often when we think of these things, you know, he showed me each piece like as a Roman soldier, right?
Okay.
So he showed me the shield, and he showed me the shield as a rectangle. And I'd always thought of this shield as round. And
Yeah.
so, of course, I was like,
Yeah.
why is it rectangle, Lord? You know, I'm the kid of many questions. I'm going to ask.
Okay.
And so he showed me, he said, Becca, he says, the shield has many positions, but there's three that are important you understand. So our shield has a place to protect us, right?
Okay.
When we're meeting someone new, right? We're in a place of protection. Well, like with Miss Shawn, I know you. So I've opened my shield to you and have exposed myself to you because we're safe together. I know who you are. Your shield is open, and then we start to create even a bigger space where the Holy Spirit can funnel. And I was like, Lord, that is beautiful. I love this. And so then he showed me the next one, and we're like laid down on the ground. He said, Becca, but this is where you advance. When we get into that place where we're surrounded with everyone else whose shield is open to us, and it is time to advance, we can all lay those shields down and walk on them to get us to that next spot. And then we pick them back up and we go into protect, right? This is a place of advancement off of that shield. I was like, beautiful, Lord, got it. The sword. So then he showed me the sword, and he showed me, you know, like a sword, you know, the bottom of it. And then lots of times the old ones would have like a stone or something beautiful in the handle. So he showed me the handle, and he showed me that place where the stone would be a compass. And then he showed that it came in and out of that place of the sword. And he said, Becca, he says, many people will put something in their sword in that compass, and it does not pull them due north. The only thing that should be in your compass, your sword, is the word. And then I seen the word slide into that compass. And it was very clear that that is our moral compass to follow. And when we stick the Bible in that place where that stone was, it opens everything to us because we're operating in truth now. We're not operating in what maybe I had Netflix in there, or if I had, all those other things we can put in there and not realize it, right? I was like, okay, so my moral compass, due north, I need the word in there. Got it, Lord. So then he showed me boots of peace, right? So our boots are that place of boots of peace. And when he showed me boots, he showed the bottom of the boots having roots in them. And that when we walk in a place of peace and I walk over land, I uproot anything that isn't of him because I'm walking in peace. When I started to apply this and understand it, then he started to show me, Becca, the seventh place of protection, that part of that armor that gets it shiny and beautiful, right, is that place of prayer. That's where I get to talk to you. That's where I get to teach you how to use your sword and what to cut away, when you're to be shielded, when you're to be open and vulnerable. I get to show you what's plugged into your moral compass. If your boots are full of peace, is your mind in that place of salvation? So that's when I started to apply the armor, was all through that iSoldier workbook teaching.
Oh my God! Now, I got to tell something for our viewers, okay? So I have observed Becca at a distance, but this is the longest her and I have ever sat down and talked. But because she said unknowing, right? The shield was able to be open. She laid it down, and I have to let our viewers know I've been called to display the beauty of image bearers. So my shield's laid down to display, and image bearers, which are all human beings. It's just a new terminology that's not new because it was in the very beginning.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
And so, okay, so this was the first book. So okay, go break down the 10 minutes. I mean, come on. You must have been like Jesus on crack like this.
Yeah. So I was like, I literally kept my eyes closed the whole time and just wrote whatever he was saying. Just wrote it on the paper. I knew my paper was blank, and so I just wrote whatever he was saying. I opened my eyes after the 10 minutes of writing and praying and just interceding and interceding over the children, because when I was in that spot, it wasn't like I was trying to write what I had taught myself through the workbook, but I was asking and seeking, Lord, what is it that the children need to hear? What is it that the children are suffering under right now? What is it that you're trying to deliver them from, trying to get them out of? And so that's when he brought me into this place of blue, being little under everything.
Oh.
And that through our armor, right? We don't have to be blue. So these books, so what happens is as blue goes through the story, by the end of the blue book, he becomes red, right? So as he arms himself, he starts to change color. And so then he becomes red. Again, this is a book about the armor, right? So same armor, same little character in there, right? But red is rapid, or this way, rapid emotions displayed. So this book was all about being upset and not understanding how to get through something. I was like, okay, Lord, this is good. So now he's going through the little red book, right? He's got his little armor on him. And then he becomes green at the end of the red. So it's just this way of, I believe each book, he's getting us into another layer of what children are feeling, right? They do feel sad. And sometimes we miss it. They do feel angry, and sometimes we miss it. We don't let them vent that out. And so then they become these little pressure cookers, right? And they explode. And it's because we haven't given them the tool to know you're not your emotion. You are smarter than
Yes.
your emotion. You are stronger than that emotion. You are loved. And what these books do is help them realize that they are not their emotion. They're
Mm.
more than that. Um, he has not been named yet. Our next book is Pink, and then at the end of the Pink book, we will go into Yellow, and in the Yellow book is where we see the character become who he's supposed to be. What is beautiful about these is, thank you, Father. I hear you. Each book has taught me something, right? Like me
Yes.
just being in the midst of it, he has taught me, like when I was going through the blue book and we let the blue book out, I was really sad. Like I went through this really hard, like, where are all these emotions coming from, Lord? And he was like, you're grieving and pulling up the root for children over that. I was like, okay, I can do that. The red book, I felt this like frustration bubbling. I was like, what? He's like, Becca, you think you'd figure this out? Like the book you release is what you're gonna feel, you know?
Yeah.
The green book, the green book was by far year to date the hardest to push through publishing. And so I know with everything in me that every book is beautiful. Every book has a purpose. But there's something around this green book that is going to help not just this generation, thank you, Father, but generation after generation after generation for this. There's something shifting in this green book. And I mean, I've had people reaching out and asking, when's the next one? Like, I've had people that have been taking the books into elderly homes, retirement homes, and reading them to people with dementia. Yes. I had a lady,
Oh.
yes, I know. I had a lady reach out on the East Coast asking if she could get them into soft cover so she could get them into the jails.
Oh
I mean,
my gosh. Oh my
I know.
gosh.
Yes. So these are they're children's books, but
Yes.
I think the adults love them as much as the children do because they're simple. It's easy to understand. It's easy for me to all of a sudden look at myself and go, you know, I do feel a little green or a little jealous around that. Maybe I should do some, weeding in that area. And to teach our children that those emotions are normal. It doesn't mean you're bad because you
Yeah.
feel that,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're bad if you're sad or upset about something, but you can feel that emotion, release that emotion, and then leave that space for something good and not get stuck on it.
It's really interesting that you would say that. So, right here, I have a book, and it's called The Monday Morning Christian. Okay. It's by Howard Partridge, and I'm going to be interviewing him in a couple of weeks. Okay. He works with Zig Ziglar's son. Okay. But in there, he wrote something that I was like, are you kidding me? How did I make it to be 54 and didn't realize this, right? In there, he wrote, anytime you're irritated or feel in whatever emotion it is, right? It is because you have an unmet emotion that's intended to be met by your creator. My mind was like, mic drop, mic drop, mic drop on aisle 7, right? So for you to do this is incredible. This is incredible. And I didn't know when I blessed you before we began that this is what is happening. I didn't know this.
Yes, yes. We are praying over this. What I have seen is I have seen the little character in Build-A-Bear with armor. So I am
Oh,
truly believing like this is even going to be a tool for children who can't speak, who don't know how to necessarily articulate yet how they're feeling, to give them a stuffy and say, dress your stuffy in your emotions, dress your stuffy, let me see what you look like. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what the Father wants to do with these. And I know it and I feel it when I speak about them. When other people start to understand what is really behind them, they start to pull on that, they start to draw on that and see it and feel it as well.
You know what I think is really important is, unless you hear it from the Father, just saying, that who says he has to go in the same store as another person, right? What if he has his own store? Because I was thinking, when we just got our ninth grandchild, and all of a sudden, all the babies are wearing llamas. Well, who said the babies are going to wear llamas on their clothes? Well, that's because it came through a thought or an idea. Yeah. So what if Bluey winds up being the new it? That's what I have to say. That would be my opinion. That Bluey would become the next. Think of it. If we think of, no discredit to these creations, right? If we think of Minnie and Mickey Mouse, right? If we think of, I could never wrap my brain around this one, but the SquarePants character, I could never wrap my brain around that, right? Or if we think of Casper, right? Or if you think of Flipper, okay? So think of all these different things, right? That became something, or E.T., right? Because somebody walked out a thought.
Yes. I'm excited. It's like, and it's every morning I wake up and it's like, Lord, what are we doing today? Where are we working today? I have a full-time job, but even the people I'm surrounded, how do you want me to minister today? How do you want me to encourage them today? Where am I positioned to help someone today? Right?
Yeah, that's really, so somebody who I interviewed right before you, she was saying the same thing, that she'll never forget the day where she was like, it's just a job. And she was corrected, right quick, like she was corrected, and it changed the rest of her life. And so by walking in the excitement, share the difference that it makes to view things from somebody else's perspective.
Right. To be walking it out, like, I think thank you, Father, especially with the books, like when someone comes back, when a mom comes back and says, I've not been able to buckle my child into their car seat without them crying, screaming, sensory. This child had sensory issues. And the child would just come apart every time they went to go into the car seat. About 3 years old, she called me in tears and she said, I read the Red Book to my son, and when we went to get into his car seat, he started to feel that frustration, and instead of throwing a fit, he said, I need to count. There's a part in the Red Book where they teach the kids to count. So when I hear that shared back with me, like, if that Red Book was only for that one mama and that one little guy, it did its purpose, right? It vocalized, Mom, I don't like how this feels, but I also don't like throwing a fit. So can we count? Can we count as you're buckling me into this chair? Those types. So like, the excitement is there, but that's really where I start to see it. When a mom texts, or I get a testimony of, my child now is not doing this because they understand it's a choice and they don't have to feel that way. Especially around, sensory children, or those types of things. Autistic children, they're able to see an image and attach to the image and pull out what they need, right? And to me, that's all creator. That's all God. They're able to go in there, that little guy, that little 3-year-old, right? When he a day later went to get buckled up in his car seat, he remembered that little red character was feeling upset and he counted, and that made it helped him. So immediately it's that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? And he was able to buckle. I have videos, parents just sending me videos. My kid is counting. Like, he just walks around the house counting. I'm like, that's good. He's using the book,
Oh.
right? So that is exciting to me. Those are the things that I want people to remember when they're hearing about this book, right? Is that it's affecting the kids.
That's
It's
right.
helping the parents. It's helping a grandparent help the children go through that and it not be a frustration that pulls the whole atmosphere into somewhere it shouldn't be.
Boy, that is so good. Yeah, and as we're talking, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I need this many for this family, and I'm thinking each household, what I need to order, and so for people who would like to order these, what are the ways to order them?
So they are on Amazon.
Okay.
So you can Amazon, iSoldier, and they'll pull up. They're
Okay.
also on barnesandnoble.com.
Okay.
And then they're on our website as well, Alive in Awe.
Okay. So good. And to think, all of those that are yet to come, right? My brain could just whoosh. My brain just goes all those to come.
Yes.
And
we're
so,
excited for a coloring book.
yes.
Right? So then a child can color what they're feeling. So there's like, this is like literally just the tip of the iceberg. I always say, like, these little books are just the beginning. There is coloring books I see, the little stuffy. There's so much in there when we say yes, right? It started
Yes.
as a workbook. I
Yes.
wasn't thinking about children's books or any of those things. I was thinking about, teenagers, early 20s. I wasn't thinking about this younger generation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everything that I had touched, the Lord took and said, this is the generation I need you focused on, right? This is where I need you working.
So let's think of this for a second. I don't know what they're called, but okay, back, how you would get the bubble wrap that would wrap your packages, right? And it would come in the mail. Well, then they came out with these little things you push. You know what I'm talking about? They come in all different.
Yes, the rubber things.
Yeah, all different shapes and sizes and colors. And because why? Because somebody walked out a thought. Yes. They walked out a thought. It's far past the Rubik's Cube. You had and then you had the little spinny thing. It's 3 little circles, spinny thing.
Yep.
And
yep.
all these different things. Or you had the liquid whiteout, and then somebody came out with this, right? It's thoughts. People just walking out thoughts.
Yep.
And so for somebody who has not been functioning in that creative realm, like, just break down many steps. How would you encourage somebody for the first time to begin to partner with the creative realm?
Yes. I would encourage you to pay attention, like when you're driving down the road and something totally bizarre pops into your mind, right? You're like, why am I thinking of spaghetti? What is going on with this? So, and then ask, like, when that thought comes into your mind, be like, why am I thinking of this? And then it will lead to the next thing. Oh, well, spaghetti, because your family is really wanting Olive Garden, but you don't know that yet. However it may come up, right? But it's to ask that next question. Okay, why am I seeing spaghetti? Or I love, like, license plates. License plates speak to me all the time, right?
Okay.
So when I'm driving, I'm always like, well, what does that plate mean? And what does that plate mean? And once I started to just kind of like have conversation, right, in that creative space, all of a sudden it was like, a whirlwind of ideas would come to me, or
Mm.
this excitement would start to come, like, I could actually do that. Like, wait a minute, this isn't just for someone else. I could do that. What is maybe the first step I need to take? Maybe it is just buying a journal. Maybe it's, if you're wanting to write children's books, go get a kid's journal. You don't have to have an adult journal, right? Maybe you need to read some kids' books. It's okay to go and sit in Barnes and Noble and read kids' books as adults. I do it, FYI.
Yeah.
Like, and if there's kids there, I'm like, you want me to read you a story? Let's read a story. Children are hungry, and not just children. Most people, when you can truly look at them eye to eye and hold a conversation, they will start to engage with you, right? And that alone is a creative space. Having a
Mm.
conversation with someone, lots of times you'll be thinking about something, and then that person will confirm it, not even knowing that you were thinking about it. That's that creative space, right? That's that place
Uh-huh.
where I was thinking that, and I know there's no such thing as a coincidence, so I'm going to go ahead and write that down too.
Yes. That's really wise. Another guest that I interviewed today shared that, oh, he was the first of the day, shared, if I hear somebody do something that works, I steal it. Not steal it as in their patent, but steal it in, if that works for that person, I'm going to adopt it over here. So in essence, you're saying it's, if it works, use it. Use it. Use something if it works. It's genius. And clearly there's excitement in these books.
Yes.
Clearly there's excitement in, but oh, that's what I wanted to share with you. So one of the people I interviewed within the last week, he was telling me when he was learning how to partner with the creative realm, there was this one day he was awoken in the middle of the night and he saw this design. And it was this very particular design of a shirt. He had never seen it before, right? So when these new thoughts come, then he investigates, has anybody ever done this? Okay, but this was straight out of the gate, learning how to partner with the creative realm. He didn't know that back then, right? So he says within a couple of years, he goes into a store and there it is. There it is. Because a couple of years back, a phrase was popped into my mind. If we're created in the image of the creator, we're created to be creative. Therefore, we have a creative desire to want to create, right? So in nature, creation never stops. Okay. Let's break it down a different way, right? Watch this. The human body never stops. So as people age, their nose grows. As people age, their ears grow, right? I always had teeny, teeny, tiny ears. And then one day within the last year, I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, what is that? My ears have grown. Because creation never stops. Just like your skin sheds and regenerates, just everything. If you ever looked in Chinese medicine and the 24-hour clock, right? There is continually change going on in the human body, right? And so it's fascinating to think, meaning creation has never stopped. So mental tapping into the creative realm never stops either. So give some commercials, little things on, give us another example of partnering with.
Um, One thing too, steal it, right?
Yeah.
Help one another. Like,
That's
there was
right. That's laying down the shield.
yes, lay it down, right?
Yes.
So there's a local child, I believe he's in 6th grade, and over last summer his dad reached out to me because this child wanted to write a children's book, and he's like, I know that you had met, I'd met someone, and could you help me? And I was like, absolutely, right? So, and I met him at a Starbucks, and we sat down, and I told, okay, go here, this is what you're going to do, kind of laid out a game plan for him to get this
Okay.
book published, right? And he did. This little kid got it published. He was on our local news about it. Like, it was amazing. So there's even places like you may be the answer to someone else's creativity. And when you answer that, it sparks your creativity. So
That's
if you're really
right.
good at marketing, maybe, or you're really good at something else, and you see someone struggling in the creative realm that maybe isn't as good as marketing, what happens when you guys collide? That creativeness starts to rub off on that marketing, and that marketing starts to rub off on that place of creativity, right? It's a partnership, and it
That's
starts to
right.
friction together. It starts to mold, it starts to do what it's supposed to. So I really feel like there's some that maybe are like, well, this is what I'm good at, right? Like, so I'm just going to do this. But how could you do it creatively? How could you add some color to that black and white that you believe it is, right? Or is there someone, just like I think there's connections waiting around us every day. And just because I'm creative does not mean I don't go in and touch our finance person at work, right?
That's right.
So then they know there's some creative space I can, when I'm struggling to understand this, I can go into Becca's office for a couple minutes, and all of a sudden things start coming together, and now I can go back in there and work, right?
Yes.
So it's just pulling us out of those other areas and applying color or creativity to what that is, So those partnerships coming together, and especially if maybe you are one that you feel you are not very creative, you are probably extremely creative. And as a child, maybe we're like, can you not color on the walls? And so now you just don't color, right? So I want to encourage you guys to even think about when you were little. When, like with me, I always wanted to write children's books as a child. I knew that, but I didn't activate it. But there's oftentimes, even now, I'll stop and I'll think, how did I play when I was little? Like when I was by myself and I didn't have anybody else to play with, what would I do? Well, I would play teacher. I'd set up all my stuffed animals and I'd stand in front of them and I'd teach them something, right? So it's like, what made me get into that space, right? So think
That's
about
right.
even things of when you were little and how you played, because that is a strand of your DNA that will forever be with you. That does not go anywhere.
And by doing what Becca's sharing with us, I'm going to pull up a book here. I'm going to be sharing this author next week, Hope Realized. And it's actually my sister, Donielle Candy Sims. And Hope realized the story never ended. The story just kept going. And then she came into contact with somebody and they're like, and who believed in her, an editor that believed in her and helped her walk this book out. And it's fascinating. And it has this book describes thought process of going back here, to going back into your childhood. It describes what Becca's sharing with us right now, right? And here's a fun fact. One day I asked the Lord, I said, Lord, what lineage was I from in the Bible? What tribe was I from, right? Because let's think of this. You can have a mom and a dad, and you have 5 different kids that look differently. Well, how is that? Well, because some take after the DNA genes in this side of the family, some take after the DNA in this, right? I currently have a grandson who looks more like my mom, his great-great-grandma, than the parents. Literally. Looks, you put him next to my mom's picture and you're like, that's Charlene's grandchild, right? So if you think, and so I asked the Lord, what lineage am I from? He said, Levite. And I was like, what? And so I had to look up what did the Levite tribe do, right? Well, they were in charge of the showbread. And the Father has called me to display people. And I just like, not only that, but watch this. I owned a professional cleaning service for 19 and a half years because it was all about the display. It was about the finished product looking beautiful, right? And I just look back over the years. I'm like, that is so wild. That is so wild. I've also interviewed people that have said, like asking them how did you come into this vocation? And they're like, I don't know. It was just in me. So can you talk a little bit about that and your experience of, like the compelling desire to have to walk something out?
Mm-hmm. I think it's I'm one to like banter, if that makes sense, when I'm in that creative space. Like, are you sure this is how this should be? Like, can I change your mind? I think it's important to know that there's no wrong in that
That's
space.
right. That's right.
Right. So, and even though it may, and I believe that iSoldier is a beautiful example of this. Here it started as a workbook. Like, that's where my mind was. That's where I was going. This is what Becca's doing. This is where we're going. That's how it's going to play out. Right. But then once I got into that space of what does it needed to be used from, and then the Lord started to mold it, it's like that place of creativity, that place of childlike really even helps me perform at work, really even helps me. I'm a procedures and process person. Like that's everything kind of just, you do this to do this to do this to do this, right? So when the Lord started showing me like children's books, and I was like, well, what's the procedure and process? What do we do first here? What's this step? And then I realized I did them all backwards. I did every step backwards. I was on step 10 and that was really step 1, right? So don't be afraid of even going against your own grain when you get into that creative space, right? My procedure process mind was like, well, this has to be this way, this way, this way. Well, it was backwards and it still came together, right? When you're creating, it's not going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be 7, 2, 9, 12, 14, 42. Oh, yeah, maybe back to 1. But by the end, you'll have the whole thing.
I am eager for people to A, see this interview, but B, get the books, because if I know in the creative realm what's going on in my mind during this interview, I can't even imagine. It is going to be, I like to call it Jesus crack, right? Because my brain goes like that, right? It's just, and but really, if we think of like the terminology creatives, right? Or I heard within the last month of my life that there are people who are directed through music. And there's a psychological terminology associated with people who slip away like as an escape route to music. And it's literally called something in psychological land. And I'm like, oh, that's me. That is so wild, right? And just our minds, how they've been created. And so you, Becca, are giving children, teenagers, adults, early, moms, and then the new stages, right? You are giving grandmas a tool to pass along to a child, to a grandchild, to a great grandchild. That's what you're doing. You're giving them tools, but tools that were part of the original belt.
Yes. So acronyms, just so you know. So acronyms. Okay. The Lord gave me an acronym for tools, and it's teaching ourselves and others loving strategy. So tools, teaching ourselves, others, loving strategy, right? When I start to learn something and I embrace it as a loving strategy, it automatically starts to change everyone around me because I've embraced it. And now that atmosphere starts to embrace it, right? And loving strategy. Like if we have a strategy based on love, it can't fail. It doesn't go anywhere. Love will always stand. It may not look like it at first, right? But it's the truth that will stand. So even like these books, these books were in a deep place of love where they came from, right? And love
Yeah.
always conquers, right? So when that creative space that we're talking about is full of love. That's what that is. That warm,
Yes.
gooey, I don't want to leave this place, right? That's when you know you've tapped into something that is I haven't been here before, but I like it, right? And so it helps keep you in
Yes.
that place. It helps get you into that place. And you crave to do it again, right? You crave to be into that creative space.
Because in essence, if you think of it, I don't care where you're financially positioned in life. Without peace, you will not be satisfied. Because my husband says something. There was years ago where a new boss came in that was 20 years younger than my husband. And the boss said to my husband, will that be hard for you? Right? And Steve's like, no, because you put your pants on the same way I do, one leg at a time. Right?
Yep.
So if we think of this, every single human being puts their head down to go to sleep at night. And every single human being in their mind will think about the day. And if the day did not consist of peace, then they're put in a position of being left wanting. You know? And so for those who may be watching, who have not experienced that peace, P-I-E-C-E, of peace, what would you say to those viewers?
I'm going to tell you what helped me, and this is something that I go to often when I feel my peace is being stolen. Right? In 2017, when I went through my breaking open, the Lord gave me my very first two acronyms at that time: love, learning our value every day, and fail, false assumption, isolating love. And I was like, okay, what is this, But what it started to teach me is that the only time I fail is when I isolate love from myself, when I isolate love from a process, when I isolate that thinking process and I don't apply love to it. But when I'm in love, learning our value every day, what happens, I start to work and walk in my value. And then when I see someone who's struggling, we start to have a conversation and they see the value, and then it sparks their value to come to the surface, and they start asking questions. What is going on here? Why? How can you do this? How can you be in peace? Because every day I ask myself, am I learning my value? Am I encouraging others to understand their value? And then are we coming together and increasing our worth together? Because I'm in my value, I understand it. I'm speaking to your value, we understand it. So now our worth increases as we go through this thing together. This is what has helped me time and time again. When I get into that place of struggle where I feel like nothing's coming together, why is everything coming apart? I immediately go back to that. Have you isolated love from it? Have you looked at that from a love-based lens? Or are you isolating love on it? Are you finding the value in it, right? Even this situation, a hard situation, am I choosing to see the value of it and understand it's going to increase my worth?
That is so incredible, because let me tell you, the person I just interviewed before you, right? She was talking about self-respect, right? And how she's gone to the little kids and said, she's a mentor for all ages, okay? But specifically, she was breaking it down to some young adults. And she said, what does self-respect mean to you? And everybody was like, kind and this and this and this and that, right? She says, no, let me share with you what self-respect really means. If I come into Becca's space, I'm going to say, and I treat Becca unkindly, then I am not placing an accurate value on Becca. Or if I look at myself and I treat myself unkindly, I am not placing an accurate value on who I am. And she said, according to the book, he said he created Becca real good. And he created me real good. So I love how both of you women are saying the same thing with a little different twist of language. It is beautiful. Beautiful. And it all has to do with relationships because we can't isolate. Nobody is intended to be alone. And if somebody is, so speak into that.
You cannot be a one-man island, right? There's a one-man island. You're surrounded by water, you're going to eventually drown, right? And who's going to be there with the life vest? Who has the boat, right? We need each other. I will say that it is important who you connect to, right? It is so important that when you're in that creative space, that you're connecting to people that are choosing to also be in their creative space, that you're connecting to people who are going to speak life over that creative space, that they're going to encourage you to get into that space. You can encourage them to get into that space. This is, and think sometimes during the holidays it's hard because there are people that some of us are alone, right? There are people out there that are alone. But I want to encourage you guys that maybe just because you don't have a spouse doesn't mean that there's not someone there for you. Oftentimes, before the Lord will give us a spouse, he will give us relationships with friends, mentors, to work things out so we're ready for our spouse. So I guess there's a couple twofold in there, right? I want to encourage you guys, like, to who are you creating with? And I don't know why, I'm just going to put this out here. Some of you have even been wanting to paint at home, and there's a friend that you keep thinking, maybe this friend would want to paint at home with me. Ask them. It's a yes. This is your confirmation to ask that person to start coming and painting at your home with you. I'm seeing canvases and women coming together in homes and painting on these canvases, right? So there's a creative space. I'm even seeing, it's like this is igniting someone's even culinary creativity, because I'm seeing charcuterie boards. I can't even say that right. Painted on, and then those are actually going out and people are placing food on them. So there's this place of creativity. So that could even be confirmation to someone. Call your friends over, paint a board, right? Like whatever that fun space is. I'm gonna be 45 in January and I'm having a slumber party, a girl slumber party, right? Like this is what, it's okay to still do those things, right? It's okay to have your friend over and you guys paint in the kitchen. Like, that's right. Sometimes we just have to give ourselves permission to get into that space. That's so I want to encourage you guys that you have the permission to get in that space. Get in that space with one another.
That's right. And so I was thinking that so many ideas. Whoosh, the people, I just can't even wait for them to hear this. But I was thinking, it came to me today that, so the process that we go through with Sagionic, right? There will be a day where we say Sagionic presents the Becca Robinson Day. And I thought, Lord, it's kind of like show and tell. And it made me so excited thinking about it today, because it came to me this morning. I'm like, Lord, this is like show and tell, but I'm playing show and tell with my friends. I'm playing show and tell with my friends. And I was just so excited about it. It really excited me today thinking about that. And so Gosh, this has just been great, Becca. I am so excited. I can't wait for when my husband says, so what are we going to get for the grandkids? Because last year I bought books, right? I bought books for all my grandkids last year, right? And the kids, everybody in my family got books, right? And like all the men got one book, all the women got one book, and then the kids were personalized. And I was so excited to get the books last year. So now I know what books I'm getting this year, right? Oh, and then during the year, I bought these books for everybody, right? So you'll have to check this out. Hope Realized. I will be interviewing the author on Monday, but you won't see it on Monday because it'll come out later on. But anyways, all that to say, thank you, Becca, so much for giving us this time today. Thank you for your yes to the creator, so that these books could unfold. Off camera, I'm going to tell you one that came to me for you that I'm so excited to share it with you. Okay? But until the next time of Sagionic 1027, I would just like to thank all of our viewers for coming and say, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon thee. Blessings. Bye.